Now, I'm going to introduce you to market structures and give you an overview of them, which is in very much your first learning objective. And then I'm going to introduce you to our resident expert on market structures, Ed Mariyani-Squire, and he's going to take you through the rest of the lecture. But first, let's talk about tomatoes. Okay, tomatoes are an example of the first type of market structure I want to introduce you to. That is perfect competition. So here I am, let's have a look at the characteristics of perfect competition, and I'm a tomato farmer. There are many firms in my market. In other words, pretty much anyone can grow tomatoes, which makes that typical of another characteristic of perfect competition. Freedom of entry, it's unrestricted. I can even throw a few seeds in my compost bin and voila, over time I will have tomatoes. Okay, so there's lots of firms in the marketplace. The freedom of entry is unrestricted. There's something else about all those products, those firms in the marketplace. They're all selling tomatoes. The same product. It's identical. All right, so the next characteristic of our tomato market is what the demand curve of the firm looks like. And the demand curve of the firm is completely flat. Okay, in other words, as you'll find out later when Ed talks about this, the demand curve is completely elastic. There's one more thing about this tomato market, the power of the firm and the power of the market. There's none, okay? No power. And what do we mean by power? We mean power to actually influence prices and power to influence supply. Okay, so the individual firm has none of it. All right, now that's perfect competition, and that's what's going to be the focus of the lecture today. So think about tomatoes when you think about perfect competition, and think about those characteristics. What about the other types of market structures out there? All right, the next one, monopolistic competition. Now, here we go. In a market where there's monopolistic competition, you've got many firms, or maybe not as many, but let's just say we've got at least several firms. Freedom of entry, unrestricted. Okay, so anyone can come in and set up, as the example says there, a restaurant. What about the rivals products? They're slightly different. So think about, we've got the Japanese cuisine, we've got the Chinese cuisine, we've got the Vietnamese cuisine, and we've got the Irish cuisine, whatever that is, meat and potatoes. Okay, now when we look at this firm's demand curve though, we see that it's slightly downward sloping. Okay, so it's not flat. We've got a bit of a slightly downward slope, and again, our resident expert, Ed, will explain what that's all about. Last one, what about the firm's power? Not a lot. Hasn't got none, but it's got a little bit, okay? A little bit of power. And there's a very good reason for that, and that really lies in the nature of its product, because it's slightly different. Okay. The next type of market structure is the oligopoly. And every time I think of an oligopoly, I think of Russia. Go and Google it, guys. Okay, so in an oligopoly, we have just a few players, all right? And here things start to get quite different. Freedom of entry, it's pretty restricted. Okay, so it's not really easy just to put up shop. The rivals products in this market can be identical, or they can be different. Now the example here is a pretty good one. Think about supermarkets. It's really not that easy to whip up a supermarket anywhere around the place, as much as it looks like it is with all the way they explode around the new developments, but it's not that easy. And just for a little bit of trivia, your average supermarket probably carries anything up to 70,000 different product lines. Think about that. So that's no easy feat. As far as the firm's demand curve goes, this is going to very much depend on your rivals and what your rivals are doing. And the same goes for the power of the firm. So we can expect to probably see quite a little bit of hefty competition going on in here. So think about Coles and Woolworths and the way they price compete, and the way they try and promote their particular supermarket brand as being better for various reasons. All right, there's one more market structure we need to cover. This one should be fairly straightforward, and what I want you to think about is Sydney Water here. Okay, here we go. We've got Sydney Water. Number of firms in the market, there's one, and there's only one, and I'm going to guess that there probably will only be one in at least my lifetime. All right, so one, this is a monopoly market. Freedom of entry, well, it's blocked. Okay, you can't imagine that it's really easy to set up a rival to Sydney Water, and you'd be right. So there are no rivals. There are no rival products. As far as the firm's demand curve is concerned, it's a very, very steep downward slope, and as our resident expert Ed will tell you, it's probably becoming more and more what we call inelastic. So an easy way to remember that is if you look at the demand curve, it looks like the letter I, inelastic. As far as the power of the firm's concerned, as you can imagine, if I'm a monopoly, I've got no competitors in the marketplace. It's going to be pretty substantial. Okay, so that's it for me for market structures, and I hope that I've made you curious and interested and really excited to know a whole lot more about this, because I'm going to hand it over to Ed now. Thanks, Ed.